now tuned in to the cold, hard truth. Cayman's #1 hard-hitting live podcast show, where we feature some straightforward conversations on political, social, and celebrity news and all things happening in the Cayman Islands and around the world. This show was created to give the people a voice and a means of being involved and informed without any filters. Sometimes it gets crazy, but we always keep it real. We bring you the tea, piping hot, so grab your favorite beverage and join the conversation via WhatsApp at 324-1612. Email tips@CaymanMarlRoad.com. Now, here's your host, Sandy Hill, broadcasting live from the beautiful Cayman Islands.
All right, good morning, everyone. How are you guys? Let me know how my mic is. I've got a new mic. I keep telling you, I got my tech team around here. Let me put this little, what they call a pop filter in front of it. We're getting all high tech around here, folks. Hubby been hooking me up with some new equipment. And I want to know what you guys think. How does it sound? Oh my God, it's an agouti and he's huge. Hold on one second. Hold on. I need to see if I can capture him in video. Oh my God, he is so big. Where did he go? Oh man, I cannot see him. Oh, he's like going all the way down the street. Oh my gosh, he's so big. Wow. Sorry about that, folks. I get so excited when I see them. They're such awesome little creatures. Oh my goodness. He was like right there. You know, we live in an area that has a lot of them. Unfortunately, human beings are always messing with their habitat. So there's a new development that has gone into Lower Valley. And because of that development, I know for a fact that a lot of them lived in that area. And because of that development, their habitat has been interrupted. Now, I don't know, how many of them may have been killed as a result of that interruption. During COVID, I would see a lot of them. When everybody was inside, the poor Mother Nature got a break from all of us. And I'm sure she was most grateful for that break. So I don't see them as much now that we've gotten back to regular life. And I think what happens is they come out a little bit earlier in the day before other people start, going out and about. So, yeah, I didn't turn anything off. I don't even think there's an off button on here. I need to find out. Is there a way for me to mute it from the mic itself? I don't think so, but I can do it from the computer. So we have a little bit of a serious discussion this morning. Actually, I needed to print off some notes to wrap my head around how to explain this to you guys, because it is actually a little bit complex, but so simple at the same time. So give me one quick second. Someone said I turned off the mic. No, I don't have a way of turning it off. Okay, let me see what we got going on here. Can you guys still hear me? I guess is the only question I need to ask. So listen, this topic, I do have some notes on. So let me just grab my notes off the printer, because I actually forgot to do that. So give me one quick second. I'm going to grab my notes. Carol says she can see and hear me just fine. Awesome. Let's enjoy looking at the orcas again while I grab my notes off the printer. All right, folks. Isn't that a lovely, relaxing picture? Oh, sorry. I can tell my sinuses were going to be giving me a problem this morning. But nothing will stop the show. The show must go on. So I've got my notes in front of me. Beautiful good morning to Irvelyn. Miss Morna is here as usual. The lovely Olivia is here. I think we need to give away a gift certificate this morning to Popeyes or Burger King. So I want you guys to pay attention for when the question comes your way. Yannick, Melita, thank you so much for tuning in. Cecile, all the way from the UK, says you are loud and clear. Good morning, Larry, from Bronxville, New York. Do you move around, Larry, or do you just have different names for where you are? Because I know yesterday, did you say Yonkers? Now it's Bronxville? Or is that like the same area, but you have a different name for it? Or did you actually move from one location to the next? All right, Sophia, good morning. Good morning to the lovely Carol. I love Carol's profile photo. So majestic. Carol, where is that photo taken from? That is obviously not the Cayman Islands. That is somewhere that enjoys seasonal changes. Elizabeth, buenos dias. Bendiciones. Thank you, my dear. Louis says, good morning, CMR Massive. Happy Wednesday. Yes, today is Hump Day. It's 55 degrees and my garden doesn't like it. Oh my gosh. Brandon Ramsey, thank you so much, Brandy, for tuning in. So we do have some persons tuning in from YouTube, and we appreciate the love and support. All right, folks. Let's get it. So we've been kind of following this situation. Oh, that's back in the UK. Oh, absolutely gorgeous. We've been following the situation with the local legal fraternity. There's some of us who are more invested in this situation than others, but I'm going to actually tell you this morning why you should care and why I have spent time taking notes, condensing my notes, because I know none of you are going to sit down and read. Can you see it? These legal documents. These are filings with the Grand Court. One is a constitutional action, right? Cause number 92 of 2020, just in case you want to read it. It's available. You can actually get it online as well. And then the other one is a judicial review application that has now been granted, and a freezing fine notice. And we're going to tell you what that is all about here in a second. So what I want to say is the legal profession is under attack. And not just the legal profession. This one is cause number 100. So as you can see, they were filed in quick succession. A light bedtime reading, right? Not at all. But listen, here's the gist of this. I am not here making an argument to you about the lawyers at Maples and Walkers who make so much money that sometimes they don't even know what to do with it. They're not my concern. They will always be okay, and they will always find a way to manipulate the law and to get what is coming to them on this earthly realm in terms of their money, right? So they will find a way to do that. And I don't know if you guys had a look at that article that we put up last night. It was quite late last night about FinCEN, which is the financial regulatory body out of the US. That's where whenever you file what's called a SARS report, a suspicious activity report, they're the ones who get it. And so there was a whole FinCEN leak of documents recently that really showed how money moves around the world. And if you are in denial about the power of money or how influential money is, and this is the kind of conversation that I almost feel like our young people on Instagram would be interested in this conversation, because I would love to be live streaming to them as well. But, you know, sometimes you just lose them. They're like, that's not my issue. I don't care. And I'm really hoping that they start to care about some of these things. So we know that over $1 billion in suspicious transactions have flowed through the Cayman Islands, because this looked at only a sample of 652 transactions extracted from the FinCEN files that shows how suspicious money flowed to and from the Cayman Islands. So a lot of money is flowing through this jurisdiction, but we are not alone. It is flowing all over the world. What is happening to our legal profession? These are the Caymanians who are like me, who aren't necessarily going to be inclined to work for a big two, because there's only two big ones in the Cayman Islands, law firm, but might want to do my own independent work as a lawyer, still want to do corporate work and all these other things. And so they have been under attack from within, which is amazing. So Flashpoint, thank you so much. Flashpoint makes the point that in their opinion, YouTube is actually better and more reliable than Facebook. I think most people don't really have an issue with Facebook streaming, but thank you for giving YouTube a shout out. So what is happening in the legal fraternity is they are being attacked from within their own ranks, because even within the legal fraternity, there are the haves and the have-nots. Now, I'm breaking this down to you in layman's terms so that you can understand what's going on here. And I'm going to try to simplify some of the legal arguments. But in my mind, at some point, this is not even about the law. This is about the haves and the have-nots, which is a recurring argument, a recurring theme that we see here in the Cayman Islands, where if you are not part of an elite group of individuals, and I'm going to just move my other camera this way, my camera phone. If you are not part of an elite group of individuals, you, my friend, will not get a full piece of the pie. Now, what do we mean by this? And you know what? I'm going to take a chance on Instagram this morning. I hate taking a chance on Instagram because they always prove me right. I'm going to just pretend like Instagram people might actually care about this topic. So I am going to stream live from Instagram today, because I know that there are young people out there, probably like myself, you know, when I was young, who have a hope and a dream of one day becoming a lawyer. And you think, if I work hard and I do all the right things, we were having this conversation on Monday, they tell you this message. All it takes is hard work. You work hard, you are smart, you know, you put in the work in terms of your academics, and it will pay off and you will reap the benefits. And for most of us, the benefits means a better opportunity in life. You know, everybody wants the nice house. People want, there we go. I think we're going to try the live stream. We'll see how Instagram does. They're always so naughty. We're going to, you know, reap the benefits of being able to support your family and your loved ones and all this sort of thing, right? So that's the argument that they feed you into the Caymanian dream. All right, let me get my water queued up here because I'm going to be doing a lot of talking. So yes, everybody wants a piece of the pie. And theoretically, there is enough of the pie to go around where everyone should be able to get a piece. And, you know, I mean, it's competitive just like any other profession. But there's a lot of money flowing through the Cayman Islands, I can assure you. So when we're talking about $1 billion in suspicious transaction, only accounting for a portion, because that says a sample, that's 652 transactions extracted from these FinCEN files, right? That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. And how the money is dispersed, how the pie is sliced up, is the large law firms get 80%. The medium-sized law firms get the other 15%. And then the small independent Caymanians, the one-shop operators, the one or two partners that are kind of working together, they get the remaining balance to split amongst themselves. So unfortunately, there is a disparity even in the professionals in this country and how they are able to make a living. And the law profession is no different. Now, we know that there's been an ongoing debate, and I don't know how closely you guys have been following this, from not even this last election, but previously, about, you know, what is happening in the world of law here in the Cayman Islands. You had the Bar Association, which was Caymanians. And then you had the Law Society, which were the non-Caymanians, and they had their own fraternity. And there was a distinction between the two. And I dare say that, in fact, there was also, not only was there a distinction between the two, but there was an erosion in the minds of the locals of what their opportunities could be in the profession. So what I mean by that, if you are a Caymanian lawyer, there is a glass ceiling. And that glass ceiling means that you will only go so far. You will never become an equity partner. We've heard these arguments before. And I know that some of you are thinking, why do I care about lawyers? Well, Two reasons. If they can go after the lawyers who have the resources, the intellectual capacity to actually challenge them. And for whatever reason, well, I know why, and I'm going to tell you why here in a second. Just like most other professions, the vast majority of our lawyers do not challenge the system because they have to toe the line, right? If they can go after them and successfully silence the legal profession, let me assure you that nobody, not me, because you know they're going after me already, not you, I don't care what you do, no one in this country will be safe from, I don't care who the powers that be think they are. So I don't care if they think they're Walkers and Maples, the Caymanian government, the premier of this country, whoever they are, none of us will be safe. They will go, and this is what's happening right now. They are going to the very top of our professions, the legal profession in this instance, and they are chipping away at their resolve in who they are, and their very right to make a livelihood, which should be a fundamental right in any country. So let me make this very, very clear. As a Caymanian, I have a right in my own country to reap the benefits of our success, right? That should be my right. We know some of the rules. They tell you in order to play the game, you got to have a piece of paper, okay? You go, you get the degree, you study. Okay, you don't just need a piece of paper, but we want you to come in at a certain GPA level. You know, you've got to be a 2.1 or above in your law degree in order for a law firm to even look at you. All right, no problem. We play the game and we do it all right. And then what I'm about to disclose to you that is happening in the legal profession why there are these two legal actions right now is despite doing it all right, these bitches are still coming for your coins. And I don't know how else to say it. They are coming for the livelihood of Caymanians. And that is what I'm going to break down for you this morning. But there's two things you need to understand. There's a long history here of, unfortunately, the Caymanian Bar Association, which is made up of Caymanians, versus the workers that we import in. And I'm not saying in theory there's anything wrong with them. But what I am saying is there's no way you should import labor, and I don't care where they're coming from in the world. There's absolutely no way that you should import labor that you then put on a pedestal and push above and beyond your own Caymanian talent. Listen, the way the system works right now is a lawyer from the UK can come in here with 3 years of PQE. PQE stands for post-qualification experience. And as we know in the legal profession, 3 years is nothing. It really is like a drop in the bucket. Like you're just getting your feet wet as a lawyer practicing for 3 years. So we allow them to come in here. And already I've got lawyers blowing up my phone like, wow, you are so right, girl. We allow them to come in here with 3 years of PQE and sit down and compete with attorneys who have been practicing for eons. Now, hold on. They're no more qualified, right? We're going to pay them more money, allow them to second or train under the best of the best. And the Caymanians don't necessarily get that. And they get every advantage in the world. Every financial advantage. Oh, don't worry about it. We'll pay for your ticket. The first year, we'll pay for housing. We're going to give you a car. We're going to give you all this stuff. Because when you come here, we know how lawyers operate in the big two. You're going to sit down 18 hours a day and work your ass off for whatever you're getting. So they want you to do all of these things. Fine. You know, the Caymanians bring you in. The law firms bring in the non-Caymanians and they put them on an uneven playing field. Okay. So this has been historically a problem. Remember this legal profession, what was it called? The Legal Practitioners Bill. They've been trying to pass this for a really long time. The last group of elected officials that were in there, it was a big to-do, and they were trying to get it passed, and they couldn't get it passed. You know why they couldn't get it passed? Because there were certain things that the Caymanians wanted to level the playing field that the big law firms didn't want. And unfortunately, our politicians, and I have no qualm saying this, I'm going to tell you why in a second, are a bunch of, let me be nice, we kiss ass to the tilt when it comes to these law firms. Those law firms appear to me like they are often running the show in the Cayman Islands and not the Cayman Islands government. So you think that it's any shock and surprise when the likes of Brent Hill from Fidelity can sit down and talking about how he is going to have a drink with the premier and smooth everything over? Not only was I not surprised by that comment or his audacity to say it, I am also not, give me one quick second here, Instagram folks. I am also not surprised by the audacity of these law firms to tell me that they run the show and that when they say jump to politicians in the Cayman Islands, the politicians say how high. I had a partner at Maples and Calder say to me one day, because I wasn't towing the line as a student, I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing, right? I had this partner say to me, Sandra, you got to learn. You're new in terms of, right? I just come back from the US a couple of years before, started working for them, went to law school, did all that good stuff. And I have them saying to me, you've got to learn to toe the line. And I'm thinking, what? What do you mean I got to learn to toe the line? Since when? But this is how it works. I'm not asking anybody. I was on the outskirts of the profession. I chose to leave, resigned before it got to that point. I'm going to tell you that story here in a second, where I had to sell my soul to the devil for the almighty dollar. So listen, the Legal Practitioners Bill never got passed because, number one, Caymanian lawyers were saying, we want to be able to become equity partners. So what happens in law school, in these legal environments right now, in the law firms, is that you have two types of partnership. One is called an equity partner, which means that you get to share, right, in the equity of the firm. So in other words, the firm makes money, you get a piece of that pie, profit sharing. I've seen pay stubs from lawyers here in the Cayman Islands. Base salary is $25,000 a month. These are not Caymanian lawyers. I want to make it very clear. The base salary is $25,000 a month. That's the base salary. The equity sharing. These law firms make millions and millions and millions of dollars. How do you think Maples and Calder can afford to have, I want to put in the B word there, billions of dollars? How do you think that they can afford to have 200 lawyers plus whatever amount of support staff for those 200 attorneys? They're not in the charity business, folks. They are in the money-making business. And they make a lot of money. But if you are a Caymanian, it doesn't quite go that way. You don't ever become an equity partner. You become a salaried partner. And you know what it means when you're a salaried partner? You buy in to the partnership. So, Christina Bodden, would you like the pleasure of being called a partner at Maples and Calder? Well, here's your offer letter. You have to pay us to become a partner. You have to buy into this. And then we'll just give you a salary. So instead of making $10,000 a month as a lawyer, you might make $15,000 a month as a partner. And there is a huge difference. There are no caps on the equity partnership, because whatever the law firm makes, they're going to share it up. You're going to get bonuses. You're going to get all sorts of nice things. So the glass ceiling exists for individuals who are Caymanians in these law firms. That is one issue. Now, it appears to me, and I do see lawyers sending me a number of comments. I'm going to get to some of those here in a second. That the training and advancement of Caymanians continues to be a major issue. So once you are a Caymanian, not only do you never get to be an equity partner in these law firms, the God's honest truth is even your training with them, in order for you to become a lawyer in the Cayman Islands, they have to give you articles. And that's why I don't practice law, because none of the bitches want to give me articles. Straight up, right? Oh no, you're too controversial. We don't know if our law firm can handle the heat of having a Sandy Hill working for us. They want people, they're going to give people articles. All these people getting called to the bar are people who are not going to rock the boat. They don't call people to the bar to think that you're going to come into the law firm and say, hold on, there's some shenanigans going on here that I cannot agree with. There are changes that need to be made in this country. The way that you treat your staff is disgusting and needs to change. It's unconstitutional. There are issues. Well, the Constitution has to do with the government, but it's just unlawful. You are constructively dismissing people when you shouldn't be. I can tell you some stories about these law firms that would make your head spin like you were in The Exorcist, because you would not believe it. You would want to tell me that I have no clue what I'm talking about. But I know. I know that when you work in a law firm as a lawyer and you see a Caymanian who was working as a file clerk. Now, let me break this down for you guys, folks, because when I tell you I'm not lying and there's no need for me to lie, and those who have worked at Maples and Calder will know that what I'm telling you is the God's honest truth. When you see a Caymanian returns from maternity leave, she is but a mere file clerk. She's not a legal secretary. She's not a paralegal. She's not even a lawyer. Literally a threat to nobody. When I tell you she was simple, she did her job. She was a file clerk and had been there for, I want to say, oh my gosh, I don't want to get it wrong. So it might have been 7 or 8 years or even more than that. But she had been there for a number of years doing her job as a file clerk. So she had a baby. She comes back from maternity leave. And this particular partner, I'm not going to name him because he's still alive. And the next thing I know, I got legal papers that although this is the truth, I'm still going to have to go to court and fight his ass because he has Alzheimer's now and doesn't remember that he actually fired poor so-and-so when she came back from maternity leave for no reason. So he gets on his high horse one day when she returns from maternity leave, calls HR. This is how they do it. Oh, let her go. I don't want her on my team anymore. Say what? She's a new mother. She just had a baby. Okay? She's returning from maternity leave. And she needs to work to support and feed this child. If you didn't want her on your team for whatever reason, because sometimes they don't like you just because of the way you look, couldn't you have transferred her to somebody else in the law firm? Couldn't you have said, you know what? I've noticed that her filing needs a little bit of help. Let's offer her the opportunity to get some additional training. A new mother, people. And you know, to this day, it was one of the things that during my tenure in Maples has always bothered me. And this girl was not a friend of mine or anything like that. I mean, I shouldn't even care, but I care because this bullshit has got to stop. And this is an example of where there was no need to do it. There was nothing that this young lady had done wrong that deserved, after 7+, and I want to say it might have even been 13 years with the firm. I can't remember exactly how long she was with them. That would have, given you the right to just dismiss her with no notice or nothing. This poor girl was so devastated. After having, been on maternity leave with her child, come back, now having to support this child. It was just, when I heard the news, I was thinking, how could you be so fucking heartless? I mean, honestly. But you think these lawyers care? They don't care about anything or anyone but their coins. And I'm just telling you straight up. And I'm using this as a foundation to explain to you guys what is now happening within the legal profession. It happens in other professions, but that's the one that we're going to focus on this morning. Now, the worst part of it all is when he got rid of her, he had the audacity to buy her or give her, I think it was like $100 or $200, and said, oh, this will help you to get Pampers for the baby. Are you kidding me? $200? You know what that is in Pampers? That's nothing. Your child will shit through those Pampers as a newborn literally in 3 weeks. And this dude is a multi-millionaire. And he's the same guy who, when I didn't toe the line during my tenure there, I was on study leave, and there was something he wanted me to do during study leave, and I, out of courtesy, replied to his email, which I should not have done when I reflected on it, to said, by the way, sir, I'm actually out of office on study leave, but I just wanted to let you know that's why you're not going to get this done. It had nothing to do with the law firm. It had nothing to do with the firm's business. He wanted me to do research for him on some publication that was going to be featuring, this big Maples and Calder lawyer. So he wanted to look good and, Sandy, you're good at research. Can you do this for me? And I said, actually, I can't because I'm on study leave. Very professional email, nothing untoward. He calls me, get in my office right now. I'm like, put the brakes on. What the hell? So I go in there and listen to me. There are times in your country, folks, that you've got to be fearless. These lawsuits right here are an act of courage, whether you realize it or not. Because the persons who have brought these lawsuits will be targeted. even more so than they have already. So this, my friends, I want to make it very, very clear, is fearlessness, all 100 pages each, is fearlessness in action. Because there is a price to pay when you stand up in this country. So I go into so-and-so's office. I remember it was a corner office because all the big wigs got the corner offices with the nice view of the harbor. And this partner said to me, Sandra, when I say jump, you say how high. And I'm just like, no, actually, I don't. I said to him, in fact, that I think you have me confused with somebody else in this law firm. And I named one of the other law school students at the time who was sleeping with a partner in order to climb up the corporate ladder. Because unfortunately, they have led us to believe that as Caymanians, that's what we have to do. So I said, sir, I'm not about to give any ass kissing around here. I'm certainly not going to be spreading my legs or giving anybody a BJ in order to get promoted in this law firm. So if it is the case that I cannot get promoted on merit alone, then I think I'm in the wrong place. And I only replied to your email as a courtesy to say, I'm actually on study leave, so you're not getting it done. Forgive me for blowing my nose on air. But he then said to me, you don't understand. And I said, well, sir, do explain it to me, because I don't understand. What I understand is I'm on a legal scholarship for the firm. So when my grades are not up to snuff, I can't go back and say to the law firm, well, TR, I'll just use his initials, had me doing research for him. And so therefore, I couldn't study. I couldn't perform. They're not going to care. Then he said, we have the politicians in our back pocket. At the time, there was a certain partner that worked there. Her husband was a politician. And he mentioned this politician by name. This Georgetown politician, when we tell him to jump, he says how high. And I thought to myself, wow, the audacity of you to basically admit, well, first of all, it takes balls to buy politicians of any country in the world. But then to sit there and admit it to lowly me, just a law school student, means that you care about nothing called repercussions. It doesn't matter. You guys really do know that you run the show. So here we are, some 20 years later. So yes, Flashpoint wants to know, hasn't this existed for a long time? Of course it has. And our own people, our own Caymanians continue to be part of the problem, both politically, the politicians, and I'm going to tell you how they're part of the problem. We're going to talk about Alden McLaughlin here in a second. Sorry, folks, my sinuses are, I might have to take a little commercial break here, but my sinuses are irritating me again today. I'm going to tell you how they are part of the problem and how they continue to allow these law firms to do whatever the hell they want to Caymanians, and there appears to be no stopping them. Well, there are at least 3 corresponding, this is 2, there is more, lawsuits that are trying to stop what is currently going on, which I'm going to break down here in a minute. So I give you a little bit of background. When I was leaving Maples and Calder, I decided to resign. I worked there for 3.5 years, got my law degree, got my scholarship. My father was on his deathbed, and I started to rethink my priorities in life. And I thought, right, everybody knows my mouth enough for me. I was always the one employee at Maples that was always getting in trouble for speaking up. And not even about myself, because I personally had no issues whatsoever. I mean, it wasn't about me speaking up for my own rights. It was about me seeing them mistreat the receptionist, mistreat poor so-and-so, the file clerk who got fired for no reason, right? The legal secretaries who were not treated equally. The Caymanians who were subjected to being yelled at and screamed at and whatever. And by the way, let me tell you how the story ended with that partner, right? Once I put my foot down, I said, nope, I don't really care. I didn't even make it down. I think he was on the 5th floor. I didn't even make it down to the 3rd floor because before I was getting a phone call, report to the managing partner, the wife of the same politician this guy just got through telling me shit about. So I go in there and she's like, Lord have mercy. Sandra, all you have to do to make it in this law firm is to keep your head down and keep your mouth shut. And I said, that's all? No thanks. When you have the opportunity to understand how finite life is, you see a parent on their deathbed taking their last breath at the age of 76. You know we are all gonna die. And you've got to decide, my friend, what kind of life do you want to live? You can go into these law firms and you can, toe the line. Yes, you can do it. And I'm going to show you how towing the line in the end still gets you nowhere. You can allow them to ride your back like a friggin' donkey. You can do all of those things. You can sleep with them. So the partners can turn you like a doorknob. And you go through all of them and sleep with all of them. And when they are ready to get rid of you, none of that will matter. So the one thing in this world that you have that nobody can take from you is whatever you've got in your head, your intellectual capacity, as well as what you've got in your heart and your voice. That's why I tell people, don't let nobody take your voice. This country is so keen on trying to shut people down who don't toe the line. They don't do what the 89% of the rest of us are doing. And so that alone becomes a reason to disenfranchise them. And so in the legal profession, this exact same thing is happening. So I decided to resign and I decided to leave. Was there a price to pay for that? You better believe it. Let me take a quick commercial break. Sorry, guys. I'm just getting very, very congested. Let me cue up something. I know Instagram folks are tuned in. Thank you guys so much. Big shout out, by the way. I just saw someone on Instagram. It's, I can't quite get the name, but I think it's Tanny Fire Spitter. Has a birthday today, turning all of 25. So thank you so much. Happy birthday to you. Send us a picture and we'll give you a proper birthday shout out. So for our viewing pleasure, I'm going to queue up. Like I said, I don't know when the full moon is coming, but I kind of feel like the full moon is coming relatively soon. And so we did see the Minister of Health talk about the importance of knowing when a full moon is coming for your libido. So let's watch that clip as a quick clip while I try to just blow my nose a little bit more and don't do it on camera. So we'll be right back after these messages, folks.
A very special connection with the moon. I was born in July 1969, and everybody knows what happened then. The first man went on the moon in the month I was born, July 1969. The thing about the moon is that we have more energy. We feel more extroverted and connected to our partners, and have more interest in sex due to our gravitational pull of the moon and Earth and the consequent energy released during this time. If you didn't know, a full moon increases women's sexual desire. The lunar cycle seems to affect women of all shapes and sizes. So I'm just saying, pay attention to the moon and bring up these totals. And by the way, this is not irresponsible. This is about saving a nation.
All right, folks. So instead of focusing on legislation that's going to help the average person to have a better life, that's going to address this obvious and unbelievable disparity with the haves and the have-nots, even in the legal profession, our elected officials have the audacity to sit down and have nonsensical conversations about the full moon and about procreation and a woman's libido, because that's where their focus is. That's what they're concerned about. So sometime last year, the regulators, so this is now FACTA, and these are FATF, these are people who come in and they tell us, you need to have certain things in place when it comes to money laundering. We have some additional concerns. And you know, they're running us around in circles, folks. But yet, I want you to go and look at the release of these FinCEN files that I was just telling you guys about. And if you think $1 billion moving through of suspicious transactions moving through the Cayman Islands is a big deal, you need to look at the amount of money that is moving through other jurisdictions. But yet, we get put under the most pressure because we're the little players in this. So they tell us what to do and we toe the line. So what can we do? We're going to get blacklisted if we don't do it. All right. So FACTA has said things like, listen, you need to regulate real estate because we know for a fact that people who launder money use the real estate market, purchasing properties, et cetera, in order to launder money. Makes sense? You need to regulate the jewelry stores and anybody who deals in precious metals, the pawn shops. And that is why the Trade and Business Licensing Board, now called, not the board itself, but the Department of Investment and Commerce, they actually have become regulators for all of these entities, liquor licensing, pawn shops and jewelry shops, real estate. So now in the Cayman Islands, if you want a real estate license, you have to go through a registration process whereby you fill out a bunch of questions, documents, you supply them with all this stuff because you need to understand your obligations legally as a realtor and what a suspicious activity looks like and when you need to bring it to the attention of your MLRO, your money laundering reporting officer, whoever that may be in your organization. Or if you're a sole realtor, then you need to know how to fill out a SARS report and how to report this type of activity. All right, fair enough. So then they say the lawyers as well. And it's so funny that they're one of the last to be regulated, really. Well, lawyers need some sort of regulation. Okay, fair enough. The lawyers jump up and they think, right, well, who best to regulate us than ourselves? Now listen to me. I've never heard such BS in my life. Self-regulation is no regulation at all. But they made an argument that people don't understand the nature of what we do. We do very complex transactions. right? So people don't understand mutual funds transactions and trusts that are set up and, all of these other things that we're involved in. They just don't get it. So we get the business, so allow us to self-regulate. Well, our government thought that was a good idea. So much so, I want you to pay attention here, folks, because this is the money now I'm talking about. So much so that Cabinet, now let me back up. The Law Society members decided that they were going to merge the two entities that existed for the legal fraternity, the Cayman Bar Association and the Law Society. We're going to merge. This was the idea. Exactly how this merger happened, people who are in the Bar Association, aka the Caymanians, and they were the ones who were fighting for, equity partnership, proper training, et cetera, they're a bit confused about how the merger happened because all they know is that a new entity was created called the Cayman Islands Legal Practitioners Association, CILPA for short. So now this association comes forward and say, we will self-regulate, right? So we're going to be a disciplinary body. We're going to have a code of ethics and guidelines for ourselves. The government, the elected officials, Alden McLaughlin, all of them seem to have thought this was a good idea. So yes, we will allow lawyers to self-regulate. And not only will we allow lawyers to self-regulate, but we are going to pay them $1 million per annum. That means per year, in case you don't know. $1 million per year to carry out this function of self-regulation. My God, lawyers are good at what they do. How the heck do you decide to self-regulate and then you convince Cabinet to give CILPA not only the power to regulate the profession, so they're regulating themselves and other lawyers for AML purposes, and they did this by amending the proceeds of crime law. How many of you even knew that these shenanigans were going on? And then on top of that, they pay the people of the Cayman Islands, they enter into a purchase agreement with CILPA. We're going to give you $1 million to self-regulate yourselves. So, wow. Crazy. All right. And it's about to get a little bit crazier, folks. So I want you to just keep paying attention. Now, when I think about small businesses right now that are struggling, some small businesses have set up services to provide services to the general public, to assist you with loan applications to government, grant applications, all this sort of stuff. And then government turns around and says, well, they shouldn't be charging you for those services. Say what? When someone provides a service, they can attach a fee to that. And if the people, the consumers decide that their service is worth the fee, they will pay it. I know of a company right now that is going through this runaround with people at DCI and CIDB, the government bank, refusing to answer their questions because they're asking those questions in order to help other small businesses apply for these government loans. Juxtapose that or compare that now against this situation where the government signs a purchase agreement with CILPA for $1 million per year to self-regulate yourself. And the outcome really, why these lawsuits have been filed, is they're not just self-regulating themselves, They are tearing down the small little Caymanians who are trying to make a living doing their own thing. They're not part of these law firms. And I'm going to tell you now how they are doing that and why this needs to stop. This is why when you go to the polls in 2021, if you're not making better decisions based on information that has been provided to you here and elsewhere, you've got to pay attention to what your government is doing. And if you are not prepared to vote these bitches out, we're already up shit creek without a paddle. It is only going to get worse. Let me take some of your comments before I continue to explain what's actually going on here. So thank you so much, Bruce. I see Bruce and Flashpoint and some others. Just give me one quick second here. Have a number of very valid points and questions that are being asked. So Flashpoint says that these divisions that you speak about exist outside of the legal profession. The glass ceiling also exists outside. Yeah, well, we talked about that on Monday, Flashpoint. If you missed Monday's show, please go back and view it. It exists in every profession. Today, I'm focusing on the legal profession because the application for judicial review has been filed and leave has been granted. So in other words, these lawsuits will now proceed. And that is a big deal. Okay? So the court has signed off on these. And I'm going to talk about the other important thing about this judicial review application because it prevents the law firms from continuing, or SILPA, from continuing to fine the Caymanian attorneys. Some of these fines are $70,000 per fine. So Bruce wants to know if there's anything fundamentally new about what is happening. What I want to say is there's a lot new about what's happening. And that's why I'm bringing you up to speed. And I'm giving you historical information to put it all in context. Bruce Alden McLaughlin is a Caymanian, yes. He is no longer in the legal profession. He does not practice. And if you don't believe for 1 second that these law firms have him in control as well as the rest of the government, right. Explain to me why they would be trying to push through a legal practitioner's bill that was not favorable to Caymanian lawyers. That should answer your question. I don't have to say any more about where Alden McLaughlin and his loyalties lie. All right. So, yes, Bruce, they definitely lacked the testicular fortitude, that's a nice way to put it, to work for and behalf of Caymanians. There's no two ways about it. Good morning to Andy. Good morning, John. So let's continue. So they get $1 million purchase agreement in place so that SILPA now gets to self-regulate. SILPA decides to set up a committee called the Cayman's Attorney Regulatory Authority. I don't even know what the hell that's supposed to mean. So within SILPA, right, SILPA's board consists of the big law firms, okay? They create a committee in order to carry out this regulatory function. And the board is now responsible, the same board that is the big law firms basically, is responsible for supervising the committee. That's important that you understand the structure here. So government has given SILPA a contract, a purchase agreement. SILPA essentially decides to delegate the work to a committee within itself. The government contract isn't between a committee and the government. It is between SOPA and the government. So how they are able to create this committee, these are lawyers now, and in their head think that this is legally okay to create a committee that's going to do the job that you have a contract to do with the Cayman Islands government. I don't even know how that works. I'm just like blown away. But that's what they did. The first member of this CARA, Cayman's Attorney Regulatory Authority. Now, doesn't that make it sound like there's some kind of independent body? And I want to say this right now. Why is it that CIMA, the Cayman Islands Monetary Authority, which regulates all sorts of entities, why are they not capable of setting up within CIMA a subsection of CIMA? They regulate trust companies, mutual funds, insurance companies, banks. Why can't they just do law firms? Why do lawyers think that they are so unique that they needed to self-regulate themselves? So this CARA now, Regulatory Authority they're calling themselves, which is basically just a committee. The first member, according to their minutes, was a partner at Maples and Calder. Anybody surprised by that? Absolutely not. So they have the right to carry out inspections of law firms. And so law firms are going, hold on a second. You want me to allow you work for a major law firm, to come into my office, look at my privileged client correspondence, my client files, to make a determination whether or not I am being compliant with AML laws, right? Look at my transactions. And you do not think that this inspection is a conflict of interest? For God's sake, you are competitors. So this now is where the issue lies. Your competitor comes to you, and I don't care what kind of business you're in. You can see where this makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. Your competitor comes to you and says, I want to be able to come into your business, look at your books, look at your client files, look at your client correspondence, right? And come to a determination if you are actually following the anti-money laundering laws and regulations that are in place, and if you are being compliant with those. That's like letting the fox into the hen house, folks. It makes no logical sense. And legally, the argument is being made in these documents that this is wrong. All right. Sorry, my sinuses are killing me. So they're not an independent body. No one seems to understand how they are even able to carry out this function and how they are going to do this job. And the people that they are targeting with these fines are the little Caymanian attorneys. I'm going to talk about some of that here in a second. At the very core of this, there is a problem. There is a problem of conflicts, potential sharing of information. So they claim that CARA, which is this committee, which is then regulated by this board, right? Supervised by this board, is somehow not going to give the board members information that could potentially hurt these independent lawyers and help the big law firms. As old people would say in the Cayman Islands, do I look like I was born this size? Like, seriously, how dumb and stupid do they actually think that we are? Nothing about data protection, nothing about loss of legal privilege. So, when you have an attorney and you correspond with your attorney, there are a lot of that correspondence that falls under the umbrella of what is called legal privilege. So in other words, your attorney or nobody else can divulge that information. So if your attorney allows his competitors to come in and look at your correspondence and look at your documents, no sort of court order, no nothing. They just waltz in there and do it. And on top of it, they are conflicted because they are in the same business as you. We got a problem. Trust me, we have got a big problem here. So in January of 2020, CARA started their inspection process under this $1 million contract. $1 million of the people's money that they're now going to use to undermine the people. Classic. Like I cannot make this stuff up. All right. Oh, sorry. Oh, my sinuses are crazy thing. So, who do they start with? Not the big law firms that have billions of dollars going through them every single year, that are filing, I'm sure, hundreds of suspicious transaction reports by the sheer volume of money and business that they're doing. They would have been the logical place to start. But oh no, we're not operating under logic here, folks. We are going to start with the smallest of the smallest, the one-man operations. It's no secret when a legal document is filed who actually filed the legal document. So I'm going to tell you that here in a second. Sorry. Oh my gosh. Sorry. Alric Lindsay is one of these people, folks. He has stood up and said enough is enough. And he is suing a few people. So first of all, as is typical, before commencing a lawsuit, you try to do everything in your power to prevent the lawsuit to begin with. When you go to court, the courts and the judges like to hear, what have you done to mitigate this situation and to hopefully prevent the lawsuit? So Alric reaches out to the Attorney General of the Cayman Islands and they say, hold on, Mr. Attorney General, we think that you have a role to play here in this. And they send him correspondence to that effect. This doesn't seem fair and equitable. What is going on here? This cannot be right. And what does the Attorney General do? Well, you guys should know, based on what the government did with the same-sex marriage debate, they ignored the correspondence. That's what they do. Alden McLaughlin is indeed a lawyer, but apparently someone told him somewhere along the line that if you ignore stuff, it's going to go away. That's never been my experience, but someone must have taught him that because he keeps ignoring stuff. So give me another quick second. Quick commercial break here, folks. Let me try to sort out my sinuses, and I will continue to tell you the shenanigans that are happening that are impacting the legal profession right here and right now.
Miracle Brokers International is a shipping, moving, and logistics company. You get all our expertise in one stop. Our motto is shop, ship, and save. All shipments are important to MBI and will track your items during shipment, clear through customs on arrival, and deliver to your door. MBI will spend the time in lines to get your cargo for you so you can be more productive with your time. Miracle Brokers, the solution broker. 345-925-5989 or miraclebrokers.com.
All right, good folks. There we go. So what we have happening is Cara decides to target the small law firms like Alric Lindsay, just a little one-man operation. And they start to make all sorts of demands on him to see his files. And he responds back and says, got a couple questions here. I'd like to know a bit more about your processes. How are you carrying this out? What assurances do I have? Okay. So we have a letter here dated January 31st. Dear Mr. Alric Lindsay, Cayman Attorneys Regulatory Authority. So they set up their own committee, which they have the audacity to call a regulatory authority. They go on to say AML supervisory on-site inspection. We write to notify you of our intention to conduct an on-site inspection of anti-money laundering and counter-financing of terrorism compliance in your practice. Because clearly, Mr. Lindsay is the one who's doing $1 billion transactions that are more likely to be used for money laundering purposes. So you start with the small local operators. Like I said, really no surprise there. Thank you so much, Odell. He says this makes too much sense. It's ridiculous. Talk about a conflict of interest. Kiss my ratted teeth. You're going to be kissing more than that here when I'm finished telling you how this went down. So they sent him this letter. The purpose of our inspection is to gain a deeper understanding of your approach to AML in relation to your relevant financial business. We'll explore the AML risk faced by your practice and the mitigation you deploy, and blah, 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 blah. So this is signed by somebody named Hugo Lodge. Okay. Give me 1 second here. Looks like the IG stream just stopped. So I'm going to just post it and then restart, because some of them are actually enjoying it for change. They're behaving themselves. Okay. So, following a review of the pre-visit material, we will contact you in advance, blah, 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 blah. So who is Hugo Lodge? Lead supervisor, Cayman Islands Regulatory Authority. They're located in Cricket Square, so they could afford, of course they could afford an office with $1 million contract from government. And they call themselves Cara. So let's just see who this Hugo Lodge fella is. I mean, I know him, claims to be a barrister. So of course he's not. He's a UK barrister, 20 years standing experience, called to the Cayman Islands, worked in the UK's financial services industry, he claims. Yes, of course he's not going to be a Caymanian. Oh, isn't this interesting? Just saw a familiar face here. Ooh, the plot thickens, folks. All right, so they've got a couple people here that are familiar faces, a few Caymanians working as admin people in the office. And so Mr. Hugo has all sorts of experience here. All right. So, yep, there you go. Published academic author for Oxford University, yada, 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 yada. He acts as in-house legal counsel. Very well. So, they send these requests, pre-visit information. So they want a list of some, looks like 9 or 10 things. Contracts of delegation or reliance on another entity to provide your CDD or AML services. And so Alric comes back and says, we have some concerns. So Alec was actually at one point a member of this association, and he decided to resign from the association. I want to talk about that here in a second. So there's some email correspondence back and forth. So all of this now is provided in this lawsuit, right? So here's the most interesting thing about this. This organization, SILPA, and by extension CARA, okay, has what's called a memorandum and articles of association, just like any company or organization, right? And those memonarts, as we call them in the legal profession, only bind their own members. So in other words, if I'm not a, shareholder, director, whatever in your company, your memonarts have no bearing on me, and I don't care what your memorandum and articles of association have to say. That's not my business. So the question becomes, this is another one of those fundamental things that's really, really skewed, is how is it that an organization such as SILPA, which has a memorandum and article of association that binds its own members, could then seek to bind non-members? I want somebody to explain that to me, because that I do not get. So the two lawsuits, or multiple lawsuits. So there's also the law firm of Etienne Blakes, I think is the name of their law firm. They have joined with some other lawyers, and they are also filing a judicial review application, pretty much on the same grounds against SILPA and the Cayman Islands government for not intervening, for allowing this to happen, for giving them this $1 million contract, and the legal authorization to carry out all of these actions, when this should really be an independent regulatory body that is not connected to the legal profession doing this. So when they started with the small law firms in January 2020, and the small law firms were asking questions like, okay, we're not members of SILPA, so what regulatory remit do you have over us? This doesn't make any sense. We have some questions about client privilege, the legal privilege, data protection, conflicts of interest. They started to issue them fines. $10,000 fine here, $10,000 fine there. Oh, you don't want to play a game with us? Here is a $70,000 fine. A $70,000 fine, you say? Yes. They were issued a $70,000 fine. And so CARA continued to issue these fines, despite the fact that these small firms, one-man operation, were trying to reach out to the Attorney General to say, please, you need to intervene. What the Attorney General did was he ignored the correspondence and instead had his secretary respond to them. Imagine how insulting that is. But, certain jobs in government, all you do is toe the line, like I said earlier, kiss the premier's ass, and you will always have your job. And then the next thing they're about to do after they're done with the lawyers is they're coming after the media, because they're going to set up in law, and the Attorney General is an integral part of this, a government regulated entity for media. So the government wants to say who media is and who isn't media is, and then tries to regulate media from there. Imagine. Does this sound like China or Russia to you guys? Because more and more every single day, that's what it sounded like to me. They're the only countries in the world where government interferes with the media, and government sets up a body to accredit media or not accredit media. Can you believe it? But that's where we're going with this, folks. That's next on their agenda. And Alden has to push all of this through before the next election, because who knows? The people might wake up and decide not to vote him back in. If you had any sense, you would. And I'm going to tell you about what Alden and his government are about to do next in relation to this legal challenge that is going to make your head spin in the next direction. All right, folks. So imagine you're a one-man operator and you get a fine for $1,000. What are you going to do? Well, I guess you have two options. You pay the fine and you tell Cara, you're right, you can come in, see all my files, do whatever. I have no rights in this country. Or you say, hell to the no. This has got to stop. And you file a lawsuit. That's how you make them stop. So the lawsuit has been filed and leave has been granted. So this will move forward. They will get a date in court. So when I sit here and I read this CARA, Cayman Attorneys Regulatory Authority, this sounds like a government agency, folks. I mean, really. Claiming that you've got a breach notice here, right? And they can fine you up to $100,000 according to them. Why? Because the anti-money laundering regulations, my apologies, 2020, it was revised just this year, allows them under Schedule 2 to fine people up to $100,000. The government did that, folks. The government amended the anti-money laundering regulation 2020, that's this year, to allow for this to happen. So they say, this is the background information, as part of the authority's risk-based approach to supervision, on-site visits started in February of 2020. The authority's supervision department sent the party a letter dated the 31st of January 2020 by email, indicating that they intended to undertake an on-site inspection of AML compliance on the 17th of February at 10 a.m. at their business premise. The letter specifically stated that if the date and time were inconvenient, to contact the authority as soon as possible. And of course, they say, yes, we requested a bunch of documentation. He replied on February the 20th, he being Alric Lindsay, raised concerns under overseas data protection laws, asking how their data will be used and asking for an indemnity. The authority did not request and still has not requested any confidential data from the party. A further email was sent, they say, on the 6th, so they're back and forth with emails. And it goes on and on and on and on. So they issued him with multiple fines, one for $70,000. But guess what? Alwick is not the only person who got fines. You guys know a lawyer by the name of Oren Marin. Mr. Oren and I sat on the business, at the time it was the Business Licensing Board, back in, I think, 2000, 2001. Mr. Oren has been a lawyer for a very long time. In fact, I think he has a son who's a junior, Oren Marin Jr., who works for some law firm or another. So it's been passed on from one generation to the next. Good folks, the legal profession is under attack. And our government has allowed this situation to be created. Let me show you this purchase agreement. See what it says right there? Can everybody see this? Hold on a second here. Purchase agreement between the Cayman Islands government and the Cayman Islands Legal Practitioners Association Limited. It isn't even between Cara, who's trying to carry out the function. So they've delegated that. What's the date on the purchase agreement? Can you guys see the date? All the way at the bottom? December. The financial year, so it says for the 2020 financial year ending December 20th and the 2021 financial year ending December 2021. So it looks to me like they gave them a multi-year contract. And this only has 3 parts: purpose and content, outputs to be delivered, payment arrangements. This is one of the simplest contracts I've ever seen when you're forking over $1 million here. So we go through this document, this purchase agreement. Now, I'm not trying to tell you how government runs their business, but what I'm trying to tell you is government is really full of it when they're ready. They will give this entity $1 million contract, but heaven forbid I needed to put in a bid for anything, or I wanted to get some government money to carry out any services. You think the contract would be, this would be it? Oh, hell no. They would put us through the ringer like you would not believe. And some of these are blank pages. See? It says this page is intentionally left blank. So anyway, they have this agreement between the Caymanian Legal Practitioners Association Limited. It's signed by the Honorable Samuel Bulgin, Attorney General. So that's why he was reached out to in relation to this, as well as he's, supposed to be government's legal advisor, on behalf of Cabinet. And so, yes, this agreement does exist. And in fact, the agreement isn't all these pages that I just showed you. The agreement is a lot shorter than that, because behind this now is the what really makes up the legal arguments of the lawsuit. Okay? So government is going to pay them $1 million to self-regulate themselves, and in the process to take out small operators like Orrin Marin, who's been in business for donkey years. Steve Matfield, he would definitely be on the list, I'm sure of that. In his 80s, they'll probably issue him a $100,000 fine. They've gone over the likes of Akiwumi over at Etienne Blake. So they are also filed their own lawsuit in relation to this. So what Alric and his team did was they filed 2 separate lawsuits. One is a judicial review application about Cara and what the shenanigans that they have been up to, allegedly. And as part of this, what this allows to happen now that this judicial review has been granted, it puts in place what's called a freezing fine notice. So in other words, Cara was going to keep, regardless of this lawsuit, they were going to keep fining him. Oh, here's another $100,000 fine because you refused to respond to your email. Oh, here's another $100,000 fine. Here's another $70,000 fine. So this stops the fines. So that's an important aspect of this lawsuit. So it puts a freezing fine notice in place. So they cannot fine him until the outcome of this. So it stops any further action against the parties until the judicial review application is heard and decided upon by the courts. There is also a separate legal action under the heading of constitutional action. This is the one now that is against the Attorney General, Cabinet, Cayman Islands Attorney Regulatory Action Authority, so CARA. And this constitutional lawsuit looks at a person's constitutional rights to do certain things. For example, how can CARA or SILPA enter a property without a warrant? Right? They can tell you that you've acted on grounds of misconduct. They're able to take away your livelihood. Sammy Jackson, everybody knows Sammy Jackson. He's a local attorney as well. They told him that he had to become a member of SILPA or else. Or else what? I mean, what are they going to do to people? Well, They're going to hit you where it hurts. They're going to take away your livelihood, your bread and butter. Small operators. So if the likes of Sammy Jackson can't pay his bills, can't feed his family, Orrin Marin can't pay his bills, can't feed his family, Albert Lindsay can't pay his bills, can't feed his family, who do you think is going to be next? They already have the Caymanians who are working in the law firms under their thumbs. They dare not speak up. They dare not have a voice, because we'll fire you and we'll blackball you. And trust me, that's enough to make these people afraid to speak out. So Flashpoint wants to know, isn't Alden going into retirement? Flashpoint, was I born this size? The day that Alden retires will be the day that we can all have a party, because it ain't happening. You actually think that Alden is not going to run in the next election? I'm not a betting woman, but if I were, I would say, show me the money, because it ain't happening. He cannot get elected as premier again because there is a cap on that. However, he will continue to run for Red Bay. And the people in Red Bay, Lord help us, they may actually put him back in. Now, here's where I want to talk about Alden McLaughlin, because I cannot believe it's actually 9:10. We're almost out of time. This gets even better. So don't fall asleep on me, folks. Give me 10 more minutes of your time, because here's what you need to know. This has been an ongoing issue for quite some time. Right now, you have non-Caymanian attorneys who have not been called to the bar in the Cayman Islands. They do not have a legal practice certificate to practice Cayman Islands law. And yet, they are sitting in law firms around the world, because, you know, all these big law firms got a Hong Kong office, an Asian presence, an office here, an office there. And they hire attorneys to work in these offices who've never stepped foot in the Cayman Islands. They sit down and they read and they tell you, yes, they're experts in Cayman Islands law. And they are able to practice without a Cayman Islands practice certificate. Now, everybody knows that they're doing it. The Attorney General knows that it's happened. It's come up before in the Legislative Assembly. All the lawyers and law firms know that they are doing it. And the fine for them, listen to me carefully, for practicing without a legal practice certificate is a $200 fine. $200. Compare that to a fine of $70,000 to these little independent attorneys, and you can see how non-proportionate this entire thing is. It is unfair, and it should be completely illegal and wrong. It's irrational. Now, here is where it gets even better. In a short while, the Legislative Assembly is going to be reconvening. So in other words, they're going back in the House. McKeeva Bush is back in the seat of Speaker. He's taken the reins back from Barbara Connolly, we understand. And they're going to be pushing through legislation. They, meaning Alden, Cabinet, this government, is seeking to push through legislation that will essentially allow these lawyers who are overseas practicing So they're registered as foreign lawyers. The fine print of this legislation is going to allow them to be issued a legal practitioner's certificate to practice Cayman Islands law anywhere in the world. And this is where I now tell you folks, the government does not care about you, the people, whether you're at the top. Well, you think you're at the top when you're a lawyer. You're not really. Not if you're a Caymanian lawyer anyway. You're towing the line. Nowhere else in the world would this sort of thing be allowed to happen. In the United States of America, if you are in California or if you want to practice California law, you have to get called to the bar in California. And you get your practice certificate for the jurisdiction, the state of California. I cannot jump up and say I'm going to practice New York law, even though I live in the US, from California, without having passed the New York bar exam. And then I get that certificate for that state. Here we are as a country, supposedly, allowing people around the world to practice Cayman Islands law, which further undermines the legal profession, takes away job opportunities from Caymanians because they don't even have to be here. They are registered in that jurisdiction that they're practicing in as a foreign lawyer. And our government is prepared to change our legislation, which currently fines them $200 for practicing without the legal practice certificate. We're willing to change that to allow them to get the certificate. And meanwhile, people think it's okay that small one-man legal operators, law firms, get fined upwards of $100,000 for each infraction. And the government has nothing to say about this. We're in the middle, folks, of a COVID-19 crisis. We went into lockdown. We allowed the government to do what they needed to do to bring this situation under control. And all of this time, this situation has been brewing. This latest battle within the legal profession has been brewing now since January. And because of COVID, it's not been on our radar. We were aware of the lawsuits. I saw the lawsuits popping up when I would go and do my online search. And I'm like, what's going on here? You know, it takes a little bit. That's why I had to dedicate an entire show to this, because it does take a little bit of breaking this down, giving you some historical background for you to truly understand what is going on here. And so this, my friends, is a hot mess, as I would say. Listen to this. Purchase agreement. On or about November the 8th of 2019, the Attorney General, on behalf of Cabinet and the incumbent president of SILPA, entered into a purchase agreement prepared in accordance with Section 32 of the PMFL, which empowered the Cabinet to enter into a written purchase agreement with a non-governmental output supplier for the supply of a relevant output, specifically for the payments of $1.087523, that's $1 million, and $1.2 million, so they get an increase for the following year. So going into 2021, it goes up from $1 million contract to a $1.2 million contract, and I'm sure every single year it's going to go up even more. This constitutional lawsuit, says that the purchase agreement was irrationally and unlawfully presented to the LA by the cabinet. And it goes into all of the legal reasons why. So lots of complex legal reasoning here. At the end of the purchase agreement, it states that this agreement will automatically terminate when alternative arrangements for the issuance of practicing certificates by a regulatory body come into effect under an intended legal services law. So folks, this legal services law now is what they're going to try to push through. Instead of the legal practitioners bill, this legal services law intends to allow non-Caymanians practicing Cayman Islands law and other jurisdictions to obtain a practicing certificate. Wow. It says that this purchase agreement is a temporary arrangement. Well, they got 2 years out of it, a 2-year contract. First year over $1 million, second year over $1.2 million, pending the LA's passage of such legislation, pursuant to which a regulatory body, and they have that in brackets, only God knows what that means, would issue practicing certificates for attorneys in place of the current issuance by the clerk of the court. So they're going to change the process of how practicing attorneys get issued their certificates to practice law. So this constitutional challenge says there are privacy rights issues here, property rights issues, rights to fair trial, because they can come in and do an inspection and fine you and all this stuff, and there's no process in place to challenge these things. Freedom of association, because they are telling the likes of Sammy Jackson, Oren Marin, Alric Lindsay, and all these people that you better join SILPA or else. You can't force somebody to join your organization. Remind me of where we are living. Are we in the Cayman Islands or are we in China? Are we in Russia? Are we in Iran, Iraq? All these countries that we talk about, the fact that they don't have a democracy in place, but we think that we do. Caymanians, you need to wake up. They will chip away at the legal professionals. Once they do that, who do you think is going to be there to fight for you in your rights? You need a lawyer. You need legal advice. First of all, the likes of Maples and Calder, they're not doing non-commercial work. So if it's a human rights argument, good luck to you. You're not going to Maples. You're not going to Walker's. Those are not the law firms that are going to be fighting for your rights to do anything. They are involved and concerned with commercial transactions. That's their specialty. And now they are chipping away at the very fiber of the rest of the legal profession, especially the smaller operators, to the point that they're going to force them to disappear. And when that happens, what do you think is going to happen next? My people, this should be a wake-up call. And this is why I tell you, I hear people saying, oh, well, the premier has done a good job during COVID. So, yeah, I'm going to give my vote. I'm going to support him. If that is your only concern, COVID and the lockdown and the fact that we claim we are COVID-free when we know that that ain't the truth either. We just had a community case pop up. He did his job. He's getting paid handsomely, probably in excess of 15 grand a month, to do what he is doing. So yes, he did a reasonable job. I would even say a good job handling COVID so far, although all of us are shocked at Friday how he's sitting there at the press conference saying that someone was put on a plane and returned to the UK when they weren't. So there are questions there that loom. But you cannot look at one thing that a person has done and say that is sufficient reason to vote them back into public office and to give them control over our lives again. You need to look at the totality of what is happening in your country. What about issues like mental health, homelessness? NAU is a hot mess. Employment opportunities for Caymanians, not just Caymanian attorneys, but you go all the way down the line. It is absolutely deplorable. And so it is time, folks, and I say it and I say it and I say it. I have no issues with the Cayman Islands being a large financial center that offers opportunities for people all over the world. We don't have enough Caymanians here, so I totally get that we would be importing labor and importing people, but not at the expense of our own people. Give our people an opportunity, first and foremost. Alric has a CPA. He's a CPA, as well as a qualified attorney. He has worked hard, and still we're going to say to him that hard work is not enough. Sammy Jackson, Oren Marin, it doesn't matter that you have spent your entire professional careers doing the things that you needed to do. And because you are not part of one of these large law firms that comes with all the privileges and protections that they offer their workers, you will be subjected to fines upon fines. You will be subjected to having your very human rights trampled upon. It's wrong, and I apologize for my sinuses this morning. But this is not going to end here, folks. I don't care what they do. We have got to be prepared to make our voices be heard and to take a stand for what is right in this country. I say it every day on this show. You can't paint wrong right, and you can't paint right wrong. It is what it is. And this situation is 100% wrong. And it has been allowed to happen by the Attorney General of the Cayman Islands. I'm sorry. Oh, my apologies. Oh my gosh. Oh, my sinuses are so crazy some days. This has been allowed to happen by the Attorney General of the Cayman Islands through the cabinet, sorry, which includes Alden McLaughlin, the Minister of Health, the Minister of Finance, Tara Rivers. All of them collectively make up the cabinet. Alden is the leader of this coalition government, so we will hold the leader accountable first and foremost. Tara Rivers, let's not forget her failures. We're going to be highlighting Tara in due course. But we are blacklisted still. Have you guys forgotten that during COVID? You probably have. We have been blacklisted in this country because Tara Rivers failed to do her job. So we talk about the fact that we elect officials to do a job, and when they fail to do a job, you know, we continue to elect them and to pay them a salary. Can I tell you, when you fail to do a job, you get fired? That's what would happen to you. Even when you don't fail to do a job, like the little file clerk at Maples all those years ago, you still get fired. Because the partner woke up that morning and said, I got used to not seeing her around here for 6 months. I don't want her back. Fire her. Give her $200 for diapers. Caymanians, you have to have a sense of what is going on in your country. Jonathan Piercy says that this has been a battle from the 1980s for lawyers, and it is only getting worse. And this government is about to make a decision with the issuing of these practice certificates. It's bad enough they're only fined $200. But the government is about to do away with that and make it okay for them to get a practice certificate. I make no qualms about saying this, and I'm going to say it in as plain a language as I can. Cayman Mall Road is a media and content entity, right? I get that we have pushed the envelopes beyond what is comfortable for a lot of people. We are the only local entity in the space of media that does a podcast. This podcast is my opinion show where I try to highlight issues, bring people on here, whether it's products, small businesses, featuring those individuals, social issues that we need to be having conversation on. So this is part of what CMR has to offer. So yes, this is an opinion show, and that's why when I get on here, it's called the cold hard truth, and I hold back nothing. And on this podcast, I will be giving you my opinions, my assessment of the candidates that are running for political office. Now, they are free to advertise in CMR. We will have packages for the election. They can knock themselves out and advertise on that. But if you come to me and you say, Sandy, so-and-so is throwing their hat into the ring, what do you honestly think? I'm going to give you my opinion, because this is an opinion show. And I can tell you right now that a lot of the elected individuals that are currently in government need to get the hell out. They are not doing anything beneficial to help the people of the Cayman Islands. So on the one hand, they sit down and they complain about NAU. NAU is hemorrhaging, they say. And that is true. There are people who are having to rely on NAU, and that's millions of dollars a year. But at the same time, they're taking our professionals, lawyers, doctors. Thank you, Dr. Sidney. He has mentioned the undermining of Caymanian physicians, ethnic cleansing. The same thing is happening in their profession. We got to have that conversation at some point. We have allowed entities like Health City to come in here, change the laws so they can bring in people who are not going to be as qualified as our own Caymanians, who we say, well, you got to go to medical school. You got to do so many years of practicing. You've got to get training in certain jurisdictions. You have to do all this kind of stuff. And yet, you have people coming through Health City because, this is going to be a big contract. We're going to be bringing in millions of dollars through medical tourism, they claim. Bunch of hogwash, because the medical tourism business isn't there. So what did they have to do? Start offering other services and encroaching on local physicians and their services that they offer. So how can you talk about NAU's hemorrhaging during COVID? Our tourism industry, the premier said this basically, isn't for Caymanians. We need to see how to get more Caymanians involved. Maybe this is the perfect opportunity to fix that situation. Alden, with all due respect, stop talking out of both sides of your mouth. because you're not fooling any of us. How can you fix those things, but you're putting legislation in place that is going to undermine the livelihood of the professionals in this country? You're undermining the livelihood of doctors and lawyers and giving foreign individuals who don't even live in the Cayman Islands. It's bad enough we're competing with people here, but you're giving those people the opportunity to continue to chip away at every little dollar we are trying to make to feed our families and to support ourselves. Make no bones about it. This is the same man who has said that what we need in this country is more foreign investment, more foreign-owned companies. This is what this man has said, because those people will hire Caymanians in secretarial roles and admin positions. I don't know about you, but I'm insulted by that comment. So we must bring in foreign workers, foreign companies, because the most they can do is offer me a job as a secretary, as an administrator, as a receptionist, support services. He could only say something like that because he sees us as unqualified, as unwilling to learn, unable to learn. Even those of us who are qualified should not be given an opportunity. We should be happy working in support positions. We should be happy for the receptionist job. We should be happy for the filing job that as soon as you have a baby, they're going to rip from under you. We should be happy that we can be secretaries in these law firms, but heaven forbid the day you get up and you say, I can do what this lawyer is doing every single day, because heaven knows they're mostly delegating it anyway. I want to go to law school. All of a sudden your law firm says, nope, we're not going to give you the time off. We're not going to do this. We're not going to do that. I've known of Caymanians who paid for an entire semester of law school. And because the law firms that they worked with said, no, we're not going to give you the time off to go. They still have young children. They have a family to support. They're unable to just quit their jobs. But yet, government elected officials and civil servants can sit there and be given the most time off. They're elected officials who are in law school, and dare I say, while they were elected officials, Charles Glidden, is that his name? CG. When did he earn his law degree? Was it the same time that he was an MLA for the people? So you're getting paid $12,000 representing the people, but you can still find time to go to law school. Meanwhile, the lowly secretary has to stay in her place, and she's never going to be given that opportunity to go to law school. Let me stop, because God knows the show could go on all day long. But I wanted to highlight yet another example. And if you missed Monday's show, let me invite you. I'm actually going to put it on the website this morning. I want to invite you to go back to it and listen to Monday's show, because you will see how from every angle in this country, we are being encroached upon, and our foundation, our ability to even earn a living, is being undermined. People are saying Cayman is not for Caymanians, and trust me when I tell you, there is nothing that is more truthful than that statement. And it is only going to get worse if we sit back and we don't care what's happening to the lawyers. We don't care what's happening to the doctors. We don't care what's happening to talk show hosts. We don't care what's happening to the media. Everybody's like, oh, that doesn't have anything to do with me. Well, need I remind you of one of the most famous quotes in the history of, I guess, forever. First, they came for the socialists, And I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists. And I did not speak out because I'm not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews. And I did not speak out because I'm not a Jew. And then they came for me. And guess what? There was no one left to speak for me. It's so simple, folks. It is incredibly simple. The people who dare to speak out, the people who dare to file the lawsuits to challenge the government, whether they're challenging the government about the port, which we should all care about, kudos to that organization. Whether they're challenging the government on constitutional grounds, they're saying that it's not fair that I'm being fined all this money and I've done nothing wrong. You've given this legal entity too much power and no oversight, I should add. No oversight. Somebody complains, the Attorney General signs a contract, and somebody complains about the entity that contract has been signed with, and the Attorney General does not even respond. We got some problems in this country. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. My apologies about the sinus issues. Some days I don't know what happens, and the most ironic thing is the second the show stops, all of the sinus issues are going to just totally disappear. I think it's just a combination of like talking a lot, so it's irritated in the morning. Thank you, Jonathan Piercy, for tuning in this morning. Folks, we are in the battle of a lifetime. If you don't get it, it's time that you woke up. Every single day, I have a privilege of getting up and talking to you all. And so with that comes a certain degree of responsibility. I saw over 120 people, I think, at one point tuned in this morning. Thank you so much. I know if I was sitting here talking some salacious, gossipy story about somebody sleeping with somebody, man, that would have been 600 people. Sometimes we have those conversations, but it is my responsibility to also have the serious conversations, the heavy conversations that allow you to have some insight into what is actually happening in this country. Yes, I wish more of you were interested in these topics, because these are the things that impact your livelihood, that will impact your ability to survive here. So continue to tune in every morning. We go hard. The show is called The Hard Cold Truth. But what else are we to do? Right? The remit of Caymanian Road is to make a difference. And I had to lend my voice to that process. So I see a couple of you, why don't you run again? Listen. The ability to reach you and talk directly to you in your homes, in your cars, right, is what I'm doing here right now. And as I always say on this program, you are right where you're supposed to be. And I am right where I'm supposed to be. I'm not supposed to be running in the next election. I'm not supposed to be internally involved in that process. My role is to try to educate the people and guide you, the voters of this country, just like I am a voter, to make some better decisions come May the 26th, 2021. We have got to vote for change. We have got to do better. So, folks, thank you so much for tuning in. We will be back here tomorrow morning. Same time, same place. We're streaming on both YouTube. This morning, we brought the Instagram people on the stream because I thought this was just a really important issue that we all need to be concerned about, no matter where you are in your walk in this life. So, folks, I love and appreciate you guys so much, and I'll see you, God's willing, tomorrow morning.
Thank you for tuning in to another edition of The Cold Hard Truth. Make sure to check Facebook for showtimes and more information and the latest news at CaymanMarlRoad.com. Subscribe to our IG and Facebook pages to get the latest happenings.